All right, ladies and gentlemen of the internet worldwide, tuning in live and, well, pre recorded in living color. This is your man Kyle Means, War Media. Follow us everywhere at War Media, all major platforms. And hopefully, we bring you some nice content here, some and well-informed content to go on top of the entertaining things we usually do. This is a special that we've put together called "It's Always Shady in Chicago." Shout out to my man Dave Evans for the title. But it's always shady in Chicago. With this special, we're previewing the uh, really the citywide elections here in Chicago, our fair city, the city notorious for a lot of trickery and type of interesting issues involving our civic duties and our elections and such. So we always, as good, conscientious citizens, like to keep ourselves informed of what's going on here in the city and elsewhere. And with that in mind, I brought uh, three, very important guests here for our show tonight. Three writers of well import and establishment here in Chicago, who I'm gonna be talking to across this special. And our first guy that we're bringing on, our first source, is a pretty special one for me and for War Media. He's a guy who's really has done a great job over the years for many different outlets, but has in his background some work with us for our website and been on the D and Davis show and the like. And he is Mr. DeMario Phipps Smith, as you can see right here. Uh, welcome to the show, man. First off, and as I said before we went on, man, it's been a minute since I've really been in your presence. I've keep up with what you've been doing online, and you've been doing your thing. And one particular piece that is useful for our special, we're going to get into momentarily. But first off, man, before we get into our talk, man, what's going on with you? How you doing?
Man, bro, thank you so much for inviting me on, man. As always, it's a pleasure. I remember the days of being an NABJ baby and just coming to you for some
Yeah.
advice, being a big dog in Chicago media. And then the last time being on the D and Davis show talking about Chicago high school sports, man, it feels like I've been everywhere in Chicago in that time. And then writing for some national outlets as well. So I started my career at the Chicago Sun-Times. Well, before that, I went to college at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, where I worked on one of the greatest student newspapers ever, at the Daily Egyptian. It got me my start in journalism and kind of, build up my portfolio and my experiences that way, which led to me getting my first full-time job at the Chicago Sun-Times as a digital writer. And then from there, I've been able to get some bylines in places like the National Football Foundation, which covers everything from Pop Warner to college football, and then also writing for stuff like Eat This, Not That on Yahoo, and also Blavity.com, a Black-owned media source that I have been like fanboying of ever since I left college, and it was an honor and an opportunity to work with them. And that all those experiences kind of bring me now to my role where I just finished my master's degree at University of Northwestern in the Medill program. And so now I work at the News Literacy Project, which is a national nonpartisan education nonprofit that focuses on giving resources and trainings to students, educators, and the general public in regards to keeping them being active and engaged citizens of our democracy. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today, man.
I'm glad to hear, man. You really take it. I'm really proud and happy of you, man. We like you said, go back and we so much background, being Chicagoans and SIU alums and alums of the Egyptian. We got that's why when I first came across you, I was definitely willing to be of any help to you as possible, and I'm glad to have done a lot in helping you along your path. But you've done a lot of the work yourself, and be able to talk about all those credits and things that you have. It is really cool to see, man. And like I said, I'm really proud of you.
No,
And
I just
in that
wanted to
capacity,
before you go on, I just want to give a big shout out to you, Ken, Dez, and people like Evan Moore. You guys have done some really amazing work in setting up the foundation for young Black journalists like myself to have a lane, to have mentors to reach out who aren't so far removed from the spaces we're in, right? Like y'all still are like grassroots. Y'all really got it out the mud, and y'all really have done a big thing for Chicagoans, especially people trying to break into the media industry. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that very much, man. It's been a lot, but I'm still pushing, and I appreciate, like I say, just seeing the development of people like you out here. It fills me with a sense of purpose, and knowing that things that I've done in the past have come to some fulfillment, and things are a little bit better in our community, in our industry, definitely, of journalism, for what we've been doing. So yeah, definitely shout out to the guys, everybody who like I said, has been doing it here in Chicago for years now, like Evan, like the Bigs, like everybody, like Jamie Gold who's gonna be on later, John Fountain as well, and but yeah, man, in your capacity as senior manager at the Community Learning and News Literacy Project, you wrote a very informative piece in the Sun Times. Going back to, again, one of your old stomping grounds recently, about the headlines they used in the Sun Times says, "Avoid misinformation, become knowledgeable before voting in aldermanic contests." And yeah, man, the piece really spoke to me. I reached out to get you on this special because a main focus is the mayor race. The mayoral race gets a lot of attention simply for being a mayoral race and for the personalities and everything in it. But we in Chicago, it's important at every level. And aldermen are especially important. And for speaking to that, this election is going to offer a lot of upheaval at that level. It's the city council level. As you write in this piece, 16 new members will stand to join the council. 16 members, it totals 12 of those current members who won't be running for re-election, and another 4 members have already resigned and up for the re-election in the election coming up this on 28th of February.
Yep.
So just starting with that, can you speak to the importance of these elections, and what type of impact they'll have on the future of Chicago?
Yep, absolutely. I think at the News Literacy Project, we preach that, we want people to become active and engaged in their communities. And one of the biggest ways, one of the most prominent ways, is to show up and vote. And not just for things like, the president and some of our national election, but literally getting involved in your local elections. Those are some of the best ways to implement change that you want to see in your community. This year in particular could possibly be a very historic one, because you'll see a number of seats change on the city council. My ward, the 28th ward, I live on the west side of Chicago. Jason Irvin is running unopposed, so that's not changing in my community. But if you go find your ward, do some more research, you'll find out that there's opportunities to plug in and really understand the ways that you can help change your community. So for instance, your alderman is responsible for everything from snow removal to fixing potholes to building a big development in the community, like a big building or a school or a new fitness center. Your alderman is considered like the mini mayor of your of your ward, which in a lot of cases like your neighborhood. So this position is highly important, and in a lot of ways, you know, might be more important to your everyday life than actually voting for the mayor. Both of those things are important. Please vote for the mayor, but also make sure you vote for the vote in the aldermanic election as well, and vote for things that are really pressing for you.
Yes, indeed. And you offer again in this article several ways that individual voters can sort of put themselves involved in these races in a positive and informative way. You start off with getting involved in your ward and staying connected to your local politicians, these aldermen. Can you speak, specifically in some of the ways that, because for the average person, they may feel that, just doing that, they feel that, I'm not to really have any impact. That's for people who are really involved as a career politician. But that's the case. Like I say, the average person can definitely make an impact and definitely be involved in the process of how things get done and established in your community, right?
Yep. However you want, whatever your views and beliefs are, they're your views. We encourage people to really be informed, to really understand what these issues are that matter to them so that they can be informed when it comes to voting. In particular, when it comes to, following your elected politicians and trying to hold them to account, some very simple things that you can do is just get familiar with the things around your community, right? Learn about the assets and the challenges of your community. And then once you take this research, really learning the environment around you, start attending some public meetings, join some community groups so that you can understand more about the issues and you can be more connected with people that influence change. And then also, like, if you really want to know, like, literally who your alderman is, you can visit the city's website. I think it's chicago.gov, and you can find more information. You can literally type in your address and it'll tell you which ward you belong to. And then from there, you can follow your alderman on Facebook. You can follow them on Twitter. You can get their access to their offices so that you can reach out to them about changes you would like to see in your community. But just staying plugged in with them, signing on to their newsletters, being abreast of their website updates and pages that they have are all ways that you can get plugged in with them without really having to be a politico or somebody who's very plugged into the community. You can take these steps to really start on that journey for yourself.
Yeah, that's an important thing to know. Like, especially with the aldermen, the alderpersons,
Yep.
we know politically correct.
Yep.
But the alderpersons, they are a neighborhood. That's the reason why they are these people, because they have to represent the neighborhood, your ward. So you may see them at public events in your area. You may see them at the grocery store. You may see all types of that you can see them. They're one of your neighbors essentially. So don't take that for granted. It's not like they're the president in the White House somewhere or the governor's mansion. And for that matter, the mayor also resides in Chicago. People, we've seen with Lightfoot people protesting in front of her house. And there's always office as well, so you can go reach them at their office on business hours, and not necessarily hassle them while they're taking a walk in the park or something.
Exactly.
But
they're normal people too.
It's really, yeah, you're right. They're normal people. people. So, you don't want to, get into all that whole harassment thing, especially with, certain issues. People get inflamed about these things, be cool and remember that they're people too.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter. You mentioned prioritizing not in the article, prioritizing nonpartisan election information. We'll get into how people can get skewed and twisted up with partisan information, but there are many sources out there that are nonpartisan and that give you the facts, to give real deal, and not something that is slanted towards a left or wing point of view. So can you put an audience on for those nonpartisan sources of information that are key to forming yourself as a voter?
Yeah, no, like I said, the News Literacy Project, we're a nonpartisan education nonprofit. So we really believe that the way to really build this movement around news literacy is to do it in a way that's nonpartisan, right? And so we believe that in order to be a credible news source around election information, or at least a nonpartisan one, if you want to be a nonpartisan one, we're looking at sources like the National Association of State Election Directors. The website is nased.org. And then there's also the voting rights advocacy platform, vote411.org. And these are both designed to encourage people to engage civically without any political sway or bias. They're really good sources at spelling out how the election works, the processes, and your rights when you participate in democracy and voting.
Now, when the majority of us get our information online, and I think we know from the past, from really a couple of presidential elections, but really at all levels, there's a lot of information and a lot of people who don't really act with good faith when it comes to informing their leaders and their civic leaders and all that. So it's important that people have a chance to have the right in front of them and not necessarily be persuaded in one falsely in one way or another. Right. So tell us about some of the best ways, efficient ways from news, from opinion, fake news, from real news.
Yeah, no. So I'll start on the fake news point. We're big proponents in that the term fake news has been politicized in a way to weaponize it against factual, verified. It's become highly politicized. So for us, we shy away from the term fake news. We focus more on misinformation and disinformation. And you can see misinformation. It shows its ugly head a lot of times during election seasons. It's prevalent throughout our society in general. You can just hop on your phone or go on social media and find some misinformation. But I think the difference in opinion and total manipulation, just people trying to emotionally manipulate you into believing something that isn't true. Opinion, and especially opinion journalism, is grounded in facts and research and a logical argument. In newspapers and in news organizations, you'll see this take the form of op-eds. You'll see talking head style things like you see on CNBC or MSNBC, CNN and stuff like that. And then you'll also see editorials by the editorial board of the newspaper, which is a group of leaders who they'll come together and take a stance on an issue or to bring light to an issue. And this is opinion done credibly. This is opinion done responsibly. They're not just telling you something and wanting you to run away with it. They're showing you why they believe in this and why this is important for us to understand and learn. So I think a lot of times when people think about opinion, it's not that opinion isn't a part of the news cycle. And we see opinion with everything. There's opinion pieces written about every controversial topic. but it is really important as you become a conscious consumer of news that you're able to delineate hard news, which is trying to tell you the who, what, when's, where, how's, versus the opinion, which is, you know, an opinion piece made grounded in logic and factual argument.
Yeah, great job explaining that. I kind of use the term fake news facetiously, kind of to set you up there, but really appreciate that explanation in regards to using the term misinformation as opposed to fake news, because that doesn't really exist. So
Yep.
the differentiation between news and opinion and how it's platformed in traditional media sources is important. And I think people, a lot of people recognize that. Some people don't, and they kind of knowingly choose to wash away all of what they call media and into one thing. It's important that we realize that the general public knows that you can have an opinion in certain journalistic facets, but and we're going to speak to an opinion writer, a columnist coming on the show as well, and I found, and still have hard factual evidence that is backing that writer up, backing that reporter up even.
Right.
And some people, you can't. Some people are so jaded against media that they go searching for really echo chambers online, and that's unfortunate. But all we can do as journalists is our jobs, and reinforce the aspects of journalism as we've been taught, and really just press on that mission of informing in the right way, and providing as much as possible for the general public that there's always evidence of what's real out there, and just keep on fighting a good fight. And you're definitely one of those people who are doing that, DeMario. So we're so glad that we were able to get you on the special once again. Use this sort of article that you put here in the sun to really inform people well leading up to this election. We're gonna move on from you, man. But like I said, man, I want to get you on again soon to talk about other issues in the community, man. Wherever you can always reach out to me, man, if you something you want to promote or some type of uh, program or any type of thing that you're going for, man. But before we sign you off, man, just let us know how we can follow your work and continually, and that of the News Literacy Project or whatever else you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You can, and thanks so much for that, Kyle. You can find the more information about the News Literacy Project, all our free resources and tips and tools. They're completely free for the public. You can find those at newslit.org, newslit, newslit.org. And then you can follow me at DeMario P. Smith on Twitter. I'm a little bit more engaging and less professional on my Twitter. So if you follow me, be aware that I'm gonna just bombard you with a lot of bulls and bears stuff. But definitely, I appreciate the time as always. If there's anything I could do to help you out or to make an appearance, I would love that. And I'll definitely keep you in contact if we got some cool things happening at NLP.
That's great, man. Appreciate it. We even though they had it in us a lot of the time, we always got to utilize the Bulls and the Bears and the sports teams to. We definitely value in using them as a an outlet for certain frustrations at times. So yeah, definitely appreciate that, Mario, man, and like I said, man, just keep on pushing, man. Keep on doing your thing, and we always got your back here at WARR Media, man. But until we get back with you again, man, have a good one. Yeah. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Take care. Talk to you soon.
All right. Yeah, we're back here with the election WARR media, we call it "It's Always Shady" in Chicago. And we've given you, a little bit of information and perspective here on the elections coming up. Uh, already we're doing uh, early voting in Chicago, but the official date is February 20th in the city. And a lot of things to talk about with this election, and we're glad to have a very well-informed, and journalist columnist here on us tonight, and an educator who was educated some of our great people here at WARR Media, Mr. John Fountain, with us. John, great to speak with you. Really admired your work for years. Chicago Times. Yes, yeah, and so I think unfortunately you're not there anymore. We'll talk that in a little bit, but you still, I see you still doing a lot of writing on a platform, but you've been in many platforms, beyond sometimes, New York Times and whatnot, and you've really done a lot of work here in Chicago, speaking to important issues and speaking the truth, and really informing a lot of our electorate here in Chicago, our community. Just and like I said, we got Saul here, and you taught him at Roosevelt University. Producer Saul, who's done so much for us here, and another one of our collaborators throughout the years, one of our really key guys, Josh Hicks. You've educated him as well. So I really appreciate the work that you do with them. You're like a better mentor even than I am. So
Thank you.
Like a so I really haven't had to do much as far as in leading myself, because you've done so much, I think, in teaching. But Saul is, you guys have spoken a lot in your classes about the election and about local journalism here in Chicago. So, starting off on that level, what are your thoughts overall on how this mayoral is up so far, though the combatants, and the state of the city right now as it heads into this latest election?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I appreciate and I'm grateful for your platform. It is important, as I always say, and I find myself saying increasingly more, that we have to have independent voices that are not necessarily linked to big media to share their thoughts and ideas, because there is not a monolith, even among men of color. We don't all speak and think the same. So I will say that, I've heard it said that in Chicago, this is a critical time, a very critical election. Chicago has some issues like other major cities around this nation. And one of the issues that the candidates continue to talk about, and some think that because Chicago happens to not be in the top 10 in terms of crime per capita, or I should say murder per capita, that it is not the murder capital of America, that the candidates are over-speaking in terms of talking about violence and their intention to address it. But I think one of the things that I know as a former crime reporter is in the city of Chicago, once the Chicago Tribune's chief crime reporter, is that the way they calculate the murder rate in cities is a misnomer for the city of Chicago. What I mean by that is they measure murder, the number of murders, by largely the overall population. That's not the way to do it, because we know that Chicago is indeed a tale of two cities, that you can live in one Chicago that never sees shooting or rarely sees shootings, rarely sees homicides, does not see bodies and brain matter and blood on the streets. But you go to another part of Chicago where I grew up on the west side of Chicago in K-Town, and I'm not putting it down. I'm just speaking about the reality of life in Inglewood, Chicago, the life in North Lawndale, Chicago, or East Garfield or West Garfield or Austin, Chicago. And it's a different picture. And so we've got to have someone who is not only talking a good game, but I think walking the walk and coming up with a comprehensive plan to address violence that does not just point the finger at police, at the police chief, but seeks to build community, seeks to, I don't know if there was ever a great relationship between the African-American community and the police, because I'm old enough to remember as a boy the killing of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. I'm old enough to remember that we saw young Black men being beaten and being abused by police officers long before there was video. And so I think there has to be some trust built up, but I think there are other issues like economic issues. And so, you know, the race has really come down to, there are 9 candidates in the race, but it seems that it's come down to a kind of a three-headed monster, or at least a race between the top 3 candidates. There was a recent poll that was conducted last week for Northwestern University and a coalition of Latino and Black nonprofits, and it shows Paul Vallis leading with 19%. He's followed by Chuy Garcia at 17% and Lori Lightfoot at 14%, Willie Wilson at 12%, but still more than 20% with a couple of weeks to go in this election before voters get to go to the polls and make a decision. There's still 20% of voters who remain undecided. So it's an important race, and I think you know, I feel a little hypocritical because I no longer live in Chicago, so I don't get to vote. But I am still a social commentator and an observer, because and I have a vested interest, because I think the way Chicago goes, Chicago's suburbs go as well.
No, yeah, you're 100%. And again, thanks for coming on, Professor. Really appreciate it. But you know, we always talk about it in class, or we talk a lot about with journalism in class and how it impacts the city of Chicago. How does this election, in your eyes, impact journalism? And it even, as you said, you know, people of color as well. You know, it's important, but just in general, as a whole, how will it impact?
I think that whoever the next mayor of the city of Chicago is, I don't think you can overemphasize the importance of their role at this time in the history of the city of Chicago. I remember growing up on the west side, and there was a sense that if I went downtown the city of Chicago, that there were things that happened on the west side in terms of crime that did not happen downtown. That never seemed quite right. And I'm reminded of a saying that you can't control chaos. And injustice anywhere, as Dr. King would say, is a threat to justice everywhere. So I think that Chicago, the mayor, has to address this issue of violence, has to address not only the issue of violence, but the issue of Chicago public schools, whether it is educating the children of the city of Chicago, because there still is a direct correlation between incarceration and illiteracy. And if the children can't read, then it shows that the statistics show they're more likely to be involved in gangs, more likely to be involved in crime, more likely to go to prison. And so the education is not just it isn't a pipe dream. It is the American dream. It is a tool to give people a way to extricate themselves from poverty. And I know many people who do that. I don't speak just as a professor, but as a pragmatic, as someone who held on to that idea of education. But I think that, however this turns out, when I look at the city of Chicago, the mayor is African American, the Cook County Board president is African American, the state's attorney is African American, the attorney general, Illinois Attorney General, is African American, and so we have key people of color, African Americans, in key positions. But I think that isn't enough. And here I'm going to really segue to journalism. I think that in terms of the stories and the issues that that affect us all across the city of Chicago and beyond, they have to be told by people who look like those folks. And what I mean is that newsrooms have to become more diverse. In 1968, the Kerner Report Kerner Commission issued its report on the previous year of riots across America. And one of the things they did was they pointed the finger directly at the media. And they said the media it has no blacks in the newsroom. It has few people of color. And in order to create a more wholesome picture, a more accurate picture of what life is like for those who live on the other side of the tracks, who live beyond the Gold Coast, who live on what I call the Cold Coast, on hyper segregated isles, high poverty, high crime. We have to, I think, tell those stories. And I think that the media has got to do a better job to get at this. And it's all a part of, I think, making the city better and creating for all of us a greater democracy.
John, going off of that, I'm glad you mentioned that and the Kerner report, and it goes right into a piece that I saw that you wrote recently on subject. Where are the black voices in my hometown newspaper? Speaking specifically times, and they made, I think, the wrong-headed decision to let you go late last year. And it seemed I would guess, given the fact that I was let go from traditional outlet, well, and I see the way that they typically act when they let go people, especially because of replacements that come, that let people like us go. So in that piece, you start off mentioning this sort of American call for the next columnist, in the Sun Times, and I just want you to speak, more about your thoughts on the future of that newspaper and maybe journalism as a whole here in Chicago, and the way that in many ways they are failing, because you look at us and like it's an uphill climb for us to maintain and for people like us to be really whole as journalists here in this town right now, and really able to do work that we know we can do, but it doesn't seem to be valued. It seems to be more about creating the next personality who can get you, more clicks, those clicks that that you want to get online, or go out and get the most subscriptions you can get, whatever, or cross over TV and get ratings that way. But it's not really about getting real journalists prepared and really put out there to do the work that is needed in a contentious town like Chicago.
Yes. Well, great question. And before I tackle it, let me clarify one point. They didn't let me go. I let them go. I set myself free.
Oh, excuse me.
And so when I say it's 50 cents a word, my Substack, Diary of a Freed Black Journalist, I will tell you that in brief that the current executive editor at the Sun-Times came in, and who has never edited my column in the 13 years that I've been there. And actually on the weekend that I filed this column was about another former student of mine, Aaron Lee. And I wrote the story. Aaron, of course, had passed away after presenting his documentary and making it back to Chicago as a producer for ESPN. I wasn't able to attend Aaron's funeral. And so I knew that at some point I was going to do a piece about Aaron in memorial, in tribute to him. And so I wrote the piece, and mind you, I've written controversial things for the Sun-Times. They all got in, there was no issue. And just on this weekend, my editor, who was normally there, was on vacation, and he told me to file my story directly to the executive editor. Now, mind you, I've been a journalist for 40 years. I have never seen an executive editor edit a columnist story ever in my life. I was a young reporter at the Chicago Tribune once upon a time, when someone mistakenly, or someone, I'll call it a mistake, they had edited Mike Royko's column and changed it. And Mike Royko called up to the desk, and he was cursing mad. And his words, with with some words I cannot utter, "Don't you ever touch my column again." That is not my demeanor. But the editor said to me, she sent me 2 versions of my column and said, and she edited, wholesale edited, changed things, used her own words. And a column is different from writing a feature story. I've written feature stories that have been on the front page of the Washington Post and the front page of the New York Times, that have been in Washington Post, the lead story in the Washington Post Sunday magazine, and on the front page of Washington Post Sunday Outlook section. I've written stories that have appeared on the front pages of newspapers across this country. I've written 5 books. I know how to write. And this was a simple story. And I tried to tell her, look, the reason I constructed it this way is because I wanted to draw the reader in. I didn't want to give all the information away right away. And she said to me, well, we should change it. I care about the reader. I'm looking out for the reader. And I'm thinking, I've been here for 13 years, and I didn't say that. I'm very calm. As a matter of fact, my voice at this point right now is much more elevated than my voice was with the editor. And she said, well, you have 3 choices. We can run either the 2 versions of your column that I gave you, or you can take another stab at it. I said, I'm not going to do either. And she says, well, we're not going to run it. And I said, I resign. Because as a columnist, my words have to be my own. As a Black man in America, who happens to also to be a Black journalist, my words definitely have to be my own. And I say that, to your question, this idea of being a journalist, a person of color in a newsroom that is predominantly white, even though my journalistic pedigree is, I have an undergraduate degree in journalism, I have a graduate degree in journalism, I've been a Michigan Journalism Fellow, I've been to the University of California, Berkeley, to the Knight Digital Multimedia Center, I'm a Fulbright Scholar, I've written 5 books, I had 6 internships before I ever got my first job, newspapers across this country. I've got the journalism pedigree, but every time I walked into a newsroom, I know that there were people there, it is the truth, that they treated me, looked at me as if I were an imposter. And so that has to change. And if it doesn't change in American journalism and mainstream American journalism, then they are continuing to dwell in their own hypocrisy. Because you don't have to leave an American newsroom to figure out how race has lived in America. Just write about the newsroom. That's how race has lived in America. How the newsrooms in America, mainstream newsrooms, are a reflection of the segregation, a reflection of the racism that exists in America. Let's just deal with that and tell the truth. That said, Saul knows that I preach. It is important to maintain your voice as an independent journalist. And we have vehicles now that allow us to do that, to tell our own stories through our own perspectives that are no more jaded than the perspectives that we hear coming from mainstream media sources, whether it's CNN or the New York Times or the Washington Post. That is their version, their selection of what news is important today for us. But they don't get to decide. We get to decide what's important for us. And so it's important for us to find ways to continue to be a voice, to continue to tell those stories. And that was a long answer for a very astute question. I apologize for rambling.
It was a perfect answer, John, and I really appreciate that you said that and that you laid out your story, for the record about what happened with the Sun Times because it deserved to be your position deserved to be heard. And it's I couldn't agree with you more with everything that you said, and you know I want to thank you, but we're gonna have to keep it moving for our final segment. I want to thank you very much for first off for appearing with us and for the work that you've done throughout your 4 years of journalism and that you continue to do. You're definitely someone who deserves to be held up and as a a great example of what it means to be Black and be in this journalism. And I wish you the best. You like I said, you still have platforms that you're utilizing to your best, starting with your Substack site. And if you could just let our audience know about that, about your Substack, and however else they could follow you and support your work, we appreciate that.
Well, if they go to johnwfountain.substack.com or just johnwfountain.com, it'll lead you to the Substack. And as I say to some folks sometimes, just Google me. I'm here. I'm out there. I ain't stopping. And I just want to say one last thing. One saying that I carried throughout my career. Don Terry is a former New York Times reporter. Last I heard, Don was working in the mayor's office. I don't know where he is now, but at a very difficult time in journalism, I called Don up and I said, "Hey man, how do you deal with this mess as a Black reporter?" And Don's first 4 words out of his mouth were, "Never internalize their disrespect." And let me tell you, through my career, I have evolved. And there is another saying that has come to me: not only never internalize their disrespect, but never accept their disrespect. Never.
Definitely. We will definitely take those words to heart. So you got what you want to say? I know you'll see him again pretty soon. So
but no, yeah. Very well said, Professor. And yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on at some other time as well to talk Chicago as well. And yeah, hopefully everything turns out well for both journalism and just Chicago in general.
Yes, indeed. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
This is It's Always Shady in Chicago, the WARR Media election special. And
I love that title.
Dave Evans is to credit for that. But, this is, like I say, this is our final segment we do it for our special. And I did 2 previous segments that were more subdued and informative and all that. But this is going to be a little different. I think this one is. If you look at my guest here, of course, you should recognize them both. Of course, my cousin and WARR Media co-founder Demonze Spruiel is here, and our good friend Jamie Golden, the lovely Jamie Golden from Black Club Chicago, one of the queens of Black Twitter, and
very true, Cuzzo. Very true. Jamie is a great follow.
Who has legitimized herself. She's literally done the spook who sat by the door thing with Black Club Chicago, and she's been doing great work covering my area of town, Brownsville. And
thank you.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you back on our air. It's been a while.
I know it's been a minute. I missed you guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how things been?
Always good to talk to you, Jamie.
Yeah, same.
How's that thing's been?
I
that you haven't already told us on there.
I know. Like I was telling you guys before we went live, like I cannot wait for election day for so many reasons. It's been education. I've learned a lot of new things. And then you growing up in Chicago, you understand the nature of politics and how it works and how dirty and petty people can get. And you're seeing a lot of that this election season as well. And some of it is entertaining and some of it is very cringy. So it's been a very interesting season. Both, in terms of watching the city hall race and even the aldermanic elections. Like, you're seeing folks who, you're seeing a lot of newcomers who are very passionate about issues and, are sort of risking it all, knowing that they may not win, but still, it's really great to see folks, political neophytes, sort of jump into the fray and do their best to pitch their platforms, which for the most part are pretty solid. We're seeing like a lot of progressives join the race, and that's always invigorating. Like, I mean, it's been a lot to sort of check out and watch. So while it's been entertaining, yeah, go ahead.
I gotta ask, the 1-9. It's like when I watched them at the NABJ debate earlier on Monday. There's 9 of them. It looked like the Wu-Tang Clan of bad options to me.
Remember that joke that Steve Harvey made in the Kings of Comedy? Like, like, why 500 motherfuckers, one mic? Like, it's very much that. Like, you don't sit your ass down. Like, no, it's very much that. And I mean, like,
I was going to say, Jamie, but yes. I know why, but I want to get that joke off of one, but it is pretty bugged though to have 9 people. We're just 2 weeks away from this election. It's like, why are you all in this race still? Like, I don't understand that.
Like, there are certainly candidates that I'm sort of side eyeing given their history with the city, their work with the city, and their affiliations. And you can't help but side eye because it's very much like one of these things is not like the other. Like, why are you here? But I will say that all 9 have a certain appeal to a certain demographic in the city.
Yeah,
and that is really fascinating to see. Like, Vallis appeals to a certain demographic. We saw the Chicago Tribune endorsement I think last week. But he also has a reputation among educators, among teachers, for ruining school districts. Yeah. Even, and it's also very weird to see an incumbent, who, and usually incumbents, sail to reelection, but not in this case, right? Because we're seeing Lightfoot, like, sort of trail, several candidates, or in a dead heat between 2. It's been a very interesting thing to sort of watch. But like I said, like, each candidate appeals to a very specific demographic of the city.
Jamie,
I was going to say, go ahead, Kyle.
Sorry, Cub. I'll let you jump in a minute, but I wanted to say this real quick. I think me and Jamie, we did like a thing. We talked to each other. Remember that Sip and Savor? I think that was time. I think that was around the time when, had she got elected yet, or was she?
Yep.
Like,
she had just like, I think it was either right before she won the runoff or a little bit after. And
wait a minute, which Sip and Savor? 2.5 hours?
47 for Michigan.
47.
Yeah.
Okay.
The building I grew up in, which was really wild, because like, that Sip and Savor used to be the corner store where I used to get my mama's pantyhose and her Coles 100s. So yeah, it took me.
But I told you earlier,
right?
but
no.
In thinking about that though, like I say, going back from then to now, like before we get into anything else, what are your thoughts overall on her? Her first administration. A lot of people wanted to be her only administration, but in your words,
Lori, right?
What are your take on what Lori has done with
Lori's last 4 years?
Yeah.
Oh wait, is there feedback? I don't know what's happening here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been, as a person who voted for her over Preckwinkle in the last election, I think a lot of folks were hopeful that she would bring about the change she promised. Yeah. I think though that it didn't quite happen that way, and a lot of people are disappointed and disenchanted, and rightfully so. She ran on a campaign promising police reform, and then the Antoinette Taylor thing happened, along with the drama regarding the last superintendent of CPD, Eddie Johnson, who, of course, we saw how that turned out.
Forget about that brother. I forgot about
like, so many. He's forgettable, to be fair.
Wow.
But yes, she ran on this campaign of reform, and we didn't quite see that. She promised to listen to constituents regarding, certain issues, certain social justice issues. We didn't see that either. We saw her sort of battling, with residents over General Iron on the far southwest side. We saw, her promising to listen to people about the 78. And she approved that within days of being elected to office, over, folks who had legitimate concerns about this mega development coming to the near west side. So, we're seeing her sort of do business as usual, and folks were, of course, understandably disappointed in that. I think the idea was the thought was that she's going to be different from Rahm Emanuel, but in a lot of ways she continued his policies, right? Mm-hmm. So we're seeing the consequences of that with this election. And that, again, usually the incumbent is, a sure thing, right? Usually they sail to re-election. This one is not. She's in a dead heat between Vallis and Chuy Garcia. And, right now, I'm not really sure what her endorsements look like. But, well, how can I put this?
You wrote recently about Pat Dow deflected from.
Yeah, that one. Wait, what was the question regarding Pat? Because
explain that whole situation, because she was.
What's really interesting is that, like, when Lightfoot first got in office, Dow was one of her allies, and I think there was a scandal with Dow where with something like there was some issue with a campaign donor to Dow's campaign. That I can't for the life of me remember the details, but Lightfoot stood by her during that. Like, it's like I trust Dow's judgment. Like, it is what it is. Appointing her to the budget committee, one of the biggest committees in the council, and they've had a really, really cordial working relationship. Like, I think one of the last few events I've covered, seeing them interact, you would think everything's all good. So when Dow announced that she would be endorsing Brandon Johnson, that was a major blow, especially considering that Dow is very much a centrist, right? And Brandon Johnson is more progressive. Mm-hmm. So seeing that sort of, like 180 there surprised a lot of people. But that's, but we've also seen like a lot of people sort of defect from Lightfoot to endorse other candidates, right? We've seen, I think Alderwoman Garza out of the far south side, who was also a close Lightfoot ally, sort of, fall out with her. Like, she's been sort of losing allies left and right too. So
that should be a clear signal, like the writings on the wall, at least for her. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, Jamie, I had never heard of Lori Lightfoot. I didn't see a sign past 79th Street. I'm like, who is this lady? I knew who Tony Prenwick was, obviously, because she's been in Chicago politics for so long. But I wonder if that's the case of a lot of people, the first time around her running, no one knew who she really was. She ended up winning. Like, okay, all right, so she won. And then all the things that you said so eloquently broke down, all that stuff happened. So what I want to ask you, do you think some people are going to give her a mulligan because of the pandemic and all the things that happened within that time? Because, like, I spoke to my grandmother, my grandmother Cal's aunt, and my grandmother's 79, and I was kind of talking to her we always talk about politics, and I flat out asked, like, so who you gonna vote for? And she's like, I'm voting for Lori. I was like, really? She's like, yeah. She's like, I know who she is. I have no idea who the rest of these people are. So go back to the original question. Go back to the original thing with Kyle said, like, why are y'all here? She knows who Lori is.
Right. There's that
So
name recognition, and that's the devil you know, so to speak.
yeah, exactly.
I think, I will say, given how other cities responded and how, the nation responded initially to the pandemic,
Mhm.
I think we have to give her props there, because she was one of the very few folks who sort of took this head on and implemented policies and strategies in order to deal with it, right? We had
Mhm.
daily briefings from, the city's Department of Health. We had major outreach with getting, vaccinations to people in under-resourced areas. Like, in that respect, she deserves props for that. Like, there were so many ways that could have gone right. And again, none of this was perfect, but at least there was an effort. And I think we have to acknowledge that. So I think she will receive a bit of grace regarding that. But unfortunately, the other scandals that have occurred on her watch will probably get more attention, right? Like the Antoinette Young thing was so, and it turned off so many people that, I think, for a lot of folks, that was the nail in the coffin. Like, you can't run on police reform and then, and transparency, and then come to find out you knew about this a year before the video dropped, and then you tried to suppress it. You tried to squash it. Like, you can't.
Sounds sort of like Rum with the Laquan McDonald.
Again, you're seeing you promise reform, and then you are doing the exact same thing your predecessor does. Like, that doesn't really encourage, trust.
Then there's the use too of city funds on police preparation and police academies or whatever that big thing is going to be on the West Side.
Yeah, so it's like you build this West Side Cop Academy that people also did not want,
and people don't want to hear that stuff, and it's like it speaks to the deepest faults in our community in Chicago. Like, Demonze mentioned, his grandmother, my great aunt, being willing to vote for Lori. My grandfather, my father's father, he's pretty much said the same thing. He's in his 80s. So I'm thinking like, well, is she gonna get like the elderly vote? And we know old folks vote more than anyone.
There's a certain demographic that will definitely come out for Lori.
Yeah. But at the same
I think
time,
again, we kind of,
that's what I'm saying. At the same time, the youth, she's got so much. The youth don't really mess with her, and it's so many other.
She's lost his ears and the young millennials for sure. But I will say this: like, folks, like older millennials, Gen Xers, as surprising as it was for me to realize this, they love the law and order. Like, they want cops, they want safety and security. And a lot of the things that you wouldn't imagine hearing from people who look like you, they are saying. So a lot of them don't have a problem with there being a cop academy or the idea of throwing more money to the department. Like, this year we spent 1.9 billion on police. We have where does that money go? We don't know. Yeah. But and at the same time, we're hearing that police are leaving the force in droves, that we have to drum up recruitment, that we need more beat cops that look like us, yada yada yada. And a lot of people truly believe that. Like, when I talk to homeowners in the South Side, when I talk to residents on the South Side, they want the cops there, and a lot of the things that they say are similar to what Lori is promising.
I'll look quick over some of these other candidates. Like, it is it is like that what it's looking like with the polling and everything is that it's a 3-person race. But again, we still have these 9 candidates. And I want to ask right quick for both of you, who is your favorite disruptor in the race so far?
That's a good question. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay. Well, I guess mine would be Brandon Johnson, right? Brandon. I would think that's him. I think he's probably the biggest one. We was talking before. I was telling Jimmy, about the first debate that I saw. It was, I believe, it was up at Steinmetz High School, and only people I knew was Lori, Chewy, Paul. Oh, I forgot about Willie. Damn, I'm sorry, Willie.
Willie, who has me blocked on Twitter, by the way.
He blocked you on Twitter?
He blocked you?
He blocked me on Twitter, yeah.
Did you earn it?
He's had me blocked for like years now. I want to say like over 5 or 6, because I was blocked.
He ain't do it. He probably read something and was like, who they doing right there?
He can be petty. I'm cool. I'm petty too. So like, I'm still be here though. I'm gonna still be in your business. You can stop me out your tweets, but I'm gonna still be in your business.
You still don't see the face. You still don't see the face.
When a t-shirt say I'm still here.
Yeah,
like
basically. But no, I think I was saying that I saw Brandon Johnson and he was getting heckled. And I'm like, who was this guy getting heckled? Like, who was he? And then I found out who he was, and my wife's a CPS teacher. She told me, like, yes, with the union's backing. I'm looking at him. I put it like this. If from the sports realm, because that's where I come from.
Yeah.
If you somewhere and you doing your thing and you getting the crowd to boo specifically you, nobody else is getting booed. Nobody. Just you. You're doing something. I don't know if it's right, but you're doing something.
Well, I like the energy. And to be fair, like, I mean, he is, for the most part, the most progressive candidate running. Yeah. So it's really interesting for me, as an admitted progressive to watch progressive candidates in these elections, sort of fight to get heard and whatever. Because like Chicago sort of likes to believe that it's a progressive city, but it has identity crisis, and that like it's like it believes it's progressive, but it really isn't.
It's not.
And our the way the city is run is a reflection of that. I think Brandon's policies when it comes to taxing, when it comes to education, they sound doable. They sound feasible, but he's got to contend with a business class that does not want any of that shit. So we allowed to curse because it's way too late now. I
would have been peeing a little earlier, but you do you cook? Go ahead and cook.
I appreciate that, but no, like I think I'd have to agree with D. Like I think the closest candidate that sort of speaks to me is also Brandon, which might be to the disappointment of the family friend who's also running. But yeah, I think given even though some of his endorsements have me side-eyeing because they're not necessarily.
That's kind of where my thing is with him. Like I don't know about a couple of them endorsements and my worry. My worry about him is not something we really got to worry about, at least in this election. But I think he might fall into a thing. It's kind of a trap thing with true progressives or people who position themselves as progressives in this city. Once you get in that office, can you follow through on these things that you promised?
Yeah,
and that's the problem that Lightfoot came across, definitely.
Yeah, but then I think the other people. I think for the thing with Lightfoot though is that she was never really a progressive.
Yeah, she was.
She was always a centrist, and I think people got caught up in the identity politics of it, and that they saw this queer Black woman who, and on the face of it, yes, you would assume that she is a little left of center, but her whole resume was working with Republicans. Like she was, like I can't remember. Which Politico she was tied up with, like in the 80s and 90s or whatever. But like, I mean, a lot of her work was kind of dead center. So when she got into office and she sort of, siding with, corporations and mega developments and, promising to, fund the police or whatever, and people were sort of taken aback by that. I'm like, well, y'all didn't read the fine print. Like, y'all didn't do your homework. You weren't getting... you weren't getting Preckwinkle. You were getting Lightfoot. And yeah, like, I mean, I will say that, you know, like, I don't know. I think she's called herself a progressive, which is really interesting given again her history.
She saw that wave, Jamie. She saw that wave.
I
And she
like,
said, "Oh, I'm hopping on this baby.
I
I'm
know.
gonna ride right down to City Hall."
I'm like, ma'am, you are not progressive.
I'm in a Democratic city. I'm running after Ron, who did some
right. And I think people,
yeah. Well, go ahead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think after Rom, we were just desperate for anything that wasn't Rom.
Yep, Ron. Yep.
Like, with if it's a clown in like a 3-piece suit, yes, we'll vote for the clown. Like, give me the nose. We're friends now. We go together.
But don't you all think that that's kind of like in the same position that Lori's in right now? Like a lot of people, I know we spoke about the I hate calling them elderly, but the seniors in our family, they're going to vote for her or whatever. But I have a feeling that she's kind of caught up in that same lane. Like, listen, I don't care who it is, as long as it's not Lori. You know, I feel like that's where she's at.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard too. Like everybody is pretty much like anybody but Lori, and that is unfortunate because again, to have come into this with so much promise and so much hope, and to have squandered that, and to lose the faith of your constituents is a huge deal. So when folks are like, when Paul Vallis has become a viable candidate, like we in trouble. Yeah. We in trouble.
That's because nobody knew who she was. I'm telling y'all. I know what a Lori, a Lightfoot was until the red. I was like, who is this lady?
But you know what's been really interesting though is like just like she came in sort of like under the radar. Like Brandon Johnson also came in under the radar. Like they're
very true.
The journeys have been kind of parallel in that way. Because if you had asked me who Brandon Johnson was 6 months ago, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. Like I
told you, who are they booing? Why are they booing this brother? They was booing him. I'm like, heckle him. I'm like, who is this man?
Okay, no. This is another question I had. I'm glad y'all made me think of it. Why does Lori hate on him so much? Do they have a past?
Because she see the threat. I think she sees the threat.
I'm just like, it seemed like they met somewhere. I would have thought it was romantic if it wasn't for the obvious thing, but it's like she really hating on this dude. Like, what is up with that?
But like Dee said, because he's a threat. Because like the fact that he came in flew under the radar and it's gaining momentum. Like every week there's another group or person endorsing this brother. Yeah. He has the backing of certain, machine Democrats. To my surprise, like he is a legitimate threat. So she's going to go after him. And even though, I think he's tried to, be as civil as he can given the circumstances, like, she's going to, if anything, I mean, like but to be fair, she's also been going after other opponents too. Like we went after Chewy, we went after Paul, and rightfully so. So
Willie,
like
she called out Willie for his comments.
Yeah. I mean, but like, okay, so about Willie.
About Willie.
Like,
Willie.
I don't understand. Listen, when the man told you that CPD deserves the right to hunt people down like rabbits and shoot them, and then also said that about the incumbent, that should have been a wrap right there. Mm-hmm. But he's still here, and he's still in the running. And I will never understand how this man consistently gets 10% of the vote every time he runs, but it happens. And he, like I said, all of these candidates appeal to a certain demographic, and he definitely does.
So, Jen, right quick, I want to get into money right quick, but I want to ask you about someone who you should know well, and I know well because again, she's my alderman, but Sophia King. Why is she in the race? Why did she not catch on in any way?
Damn.
Because
Sophia, why are you here? Like, my name is Cal Means, and I want to know why are you here?
Like, why? Like, what's your deal? Like, why?
Right.
So like, and we have a very interesting dynamic in that. Like, now she hugs me every time she sees me. It's very, like it's like,
Go
oh,
where the
like,
bread is buttered. She gonna get you on the side.
No, I don't know what the motivation was for Sophia. I can't really call it. And I don't know if, like, she's been able to sort of run for re-election pretty easily as alderperson.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I don't know if that translates well to the city office, right?
Doesn't look like
And again, no, it doesn't. And like, and also her problem is that she's also left of center, and that doesn't gel well for the city at large. Like,
Is she?
No, like, okay, in many ways she is left of center. Like, some of her politics are, but she's also of a certain generation, and she's still, sort of, she's still to the right of Brandon Johnson, but she's still a little more progressive than Lori.
Okay.
But that's still not going to get her the fifth floor. Like, that's not going to happen. I don't think that's ever going to happen, unfortunately. But I also think, at least, she's getting some of her ideas out there, that she's sharing her platform, and people are getting a better idea of what she stands for, and maybe some of that will resonate with voters and her fellow candidates, and maybe there's a way to sort of incorporate some of the things that she's suggesting into their policies as well. I don't know, but I don't mind Sophia being there per se, because like, she's not Paul Vallis. Like, that's
But it's not a good sign.
Why is that?
Why is Paul here? We know why Paul is there. It's the complexion for the protection.
We know why Paul is here.
But yeah. But
like, I mean, like, we've got the grievance we got the grievance crew on lock. Like, I mean, he's got the grievance vote, like,
yes,
on lock. So
Cal, can I give you my street analysis of why Sophia King is
go,
So
go ahead. I was gonna say right quick though, it's not a good sign when, again, they're going to the money, but it's not a good sign when your husband is your highest contributor to your campaign.
Your highest
contributor. Yeah. And if she ain't get no money, her baby better get her some money. So she can say
but
he will be. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate the support. Like, support me.
That's the kind of support we all want in a spouse. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So my street analysis for Miss King. So I'm looking at it as a sense of like, okay, Hyde Park. I lived over there. Oh wow, more than 10 years until we, we move a little bit further south, right? Hyde Park has completely changed from when me and my now wife moved over there, like in 2006, to where it is right now. It has completely been revamped, if you want to say, right? So she has that, right? You have, like, if you want to say, the kind of crown jewel of the South Side with a very diverse majority Black community. That's good. People see, oh man, Hyde Park. Listen, I'm from Inglewood. If you lived in Hyde Park, damn it, you made it. And I mean, that was huge for us, right? That was huge for us. So you have that. So the second thing is, I think, I'm gonna give you a little story too about Sophia King. It's a little encounter that I had with somebody else. So also too, to my main point though, I think she's just green. This is her first time really running for the big office. And I was actually talking to my wife about it. I was like, I think she kind of said the same thing you said, Kyle. It's like, why is she out there? And what's going on? I'm like, listen, it's a big jump going from, like, I ain't calling people aldermen in the minor leagues, but going from the minor leagues to the major league. But she's there and she's green and she has to kind of figure it out. This is the first time running. It's sort of like her and Cam. Is it Cam Buckner? Is that his name? Yeah. They both, saying, and Alderman Sawyer. I like Alderman Sawyer too. But they're green. And they haven't done this shit. So it wouldn't surprise me if all three of them ran the next cycle. They've been through the fire. They've been through the debates. They've been through the forums. They've seen all the craziness. They understand probably how to campaign a little bit better, how to donate, get donations better, how to maybe get some better endorsements. They kind of figured it out. Lori was an admiration. She was like a Haley's Comet. It was very weird. It was very weird how she got there. But my quick little story. I met Eve Ewan in a book signing over in at the Silver Room. For her Ironheart comic. So I wanted to get it. I wanted to get a sign for Grace, she's really into Marvel. It's like, okay, I gotta go do it. So I'm standing in line. little lady, older lady. She walking around. She walking to. Do you live in this ward? Are you registered to vote? I said, I ain't registered to vote, ma'am, but I don't live in this ward. She's like, okay. So a brother's behind me. He walk in. He's standing there, you know what I'm saying? See the little, his weird was strong. I put it like that. His weird was strong. Okay, all right. We the same thing, man. We like comic books. We come and see E. She walks up to this brother. And he's like, are you registered to vote? You live in this ward? Yeah. He's like, okay, all right. Well, do you know who you voting for? Not yet, but not Sophia King. I said, damn.
Stayed with his chest.
I did. James, he said it with his chest. I turned around like, well, shit. What did she do to you? But and he kept on, he was kind of mumbling. The journalist part, old journalist in me, I really wanted to turn around and have a conversation with that brother. Tell me, why you feel that way? Yeah, I was very curious. But as I said, his weird was strong. So I just stood in line.
It might be because he didn't like the way her flyers looked. We don't know.
Maybe. Although, right. and Chanel, my wife, she actually said, you know what? I wonder if a lot of people that lived over there in Hyde Park when we was over there in early 2000 like that. Like I said, it's completely changed. And Hyde Park was a really kind of family, old school, oriented mom and pop shops. You got Akira, you got this, you got that. Shit is changing. It's big box, not big box, but it's changing. And I wonder if a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, we've been here, my husband and I and our son, we've been here since 2007. Yeah. So it's been seeing the change and all the developments and stuff. I mean, it's very interesting to watch, but I'm also seeing people sort of, try to cling on to whatever piece of real estate they have.
Yeah.
Because they're definitely getting pushed out. And I think one of the other problems, the other pieces of this is, you got a lot, the University of Chicago has a significant amount of power.
They buying everything. Everything.
And the problem with, what from what I hear from other residents, the problem or their concern is that there is nobody in power to stop them from doing that. You should not have this much say or this much power in deciding what goes, what stays, and whatever. And meanwhile, as they're consolidating their power, as they're growing in power, residents are getting pushed out of this neighborhood. They can, I can afford to buy here. We've been here for almost 15 years, and
I wanted to buy over there so bad, Jamie. I wanted to. I didn't hit the lottery, so I clicked.
I'm about ready to start an OnlyFans just to, do I have to selfie on the side to buy a house now?
Man. Who's worse, Mac Properties, or the University of Chicago? Who's worse in Hyde Park?
Man, I don't know. It's the same side of the fucked up coin.
Godzilla versus King Kong. What are you? Yeah.
I was gonna say right.
But I'm thinking that could be a reason why maybe she's not taking off, because maybe some people are kind of looking at that okay. And I
think that's
the way that the neighborhood, that the area has evolved, or some would say de-evolved over time. People are going to attribute that to her, and that probably is what's going to bring up that sort of strong feeling and the strong chested guy you saw at the Eve Ewing signing. But
it's nice, it's beautiful still over there, but it's just different, and people might attach that to her.
And rapidly unaffordable.
Rapidly unaffordable. There you go.
Yeah, when you talk to some of the residents here, so I'm on the border of the 4th and the 5th. So you got King over here, you got Harrison over there, and Harrison's also leaving her post, which another very interesting race that you guys gotta keep an eye on. So when you're talking to constituents about how they feel about Hyde Park and the future of it and where they fit in that future. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty there, because you have to contend with all these, things happening, all the developments are coming.
Yeah.
And you're when it comes to getting basic services met, a lot of times I hear, well, I call the office, the ward office, I can't get anybody. Or I feel like you're hearing stories like those. I heard some folks I talked to about one of the big stories I wrote about like a couple years back was the noise and the biker gangs on the 41st Street pedestrian bridge, right? And they basically were like, hey, we have reached out to the ward office to sort of handle this because we're getting, like all these folks coming near our homes to hang out near the bridge and do this, that, and the third. And you got biker gangs literally going across the bridge when they're not supposed to. We're not getting the results that, we're doing what we're supposed to do to, ask for help, and we're not getting that help. And it's the same thing with the events coming to to Oakwood Beach. A lot of these residents do not want the stuff in their backyard. They've made that very clear to the alderperson. They're still not getting hurt. So, I think a lot of the reason why she's having a problem with gaining, growing, getting, supporters or growing in the polls is because of those things. People talk, constituents talk. If you're not, and if they don't feel like you're doing what you're supposed to do in your own backyard, then how are we supposed to trust that you'll be able to do this when you're on the fifth floor?
She also needs to be herself. A lot of the debate, she doesn't say, like I saw Brandon Johnson, he always say, I'm gonna keep 100 with you. I'm gonna keep 100.
Yeah.
And then she said it right behind him. I said, come on now, Sophia.
That's not how you talk, sis.
That's not how you talk. Be yourself. Yeah. Like, ma'am.
You'll never hear Paul Vallen say, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. You never have to worry about Paul Vallen saying, no.
Right. You never just be. But like I said though, I think she's gonna run again in the future. I think she's just green.
I think this is a good dry run for her, right?
Yep.
And I think, honestly, in terms of her competition, I don't question why she's there so much as I question why some of the others are there. And I think there's a sincerity and an earnestness to sort of want to change and help, make this city better. And I think that works in her favor. A lot of folks who run for these offices, a lot of it is self-serving, a lot of it is about ego, and it's okay to admit that. But I think in Sophia's case, there's also that genuine, desire to make the city a better place. And I think when she finds sort of finds her real voice and, sort of uses it, maybe the second time around she'll fare better,
I don't want to be too hard. I was, but it, like y'all, like we sort of alluded to, this whole race, it could offer quite a look into the future of the city and its leadership in a lot of ways. And look at the aldermanic races too. I spoke a little bit earlier with DeMario Smith about that. He wrote a good piece in the Sun-Times about paying attention to those races and being informed in the right way. And I saw in his piece there's 16 all 16 spots in the city council that are going to be up for grabs in this election too. So right quick before we wrap up, Jamie in particular, like I said, one of those races, of course, is the fourth ward because Sophia's not running. She's running for mayor, so she her chief of staff, I think, is one of the candidates.
Prentice Butler,
So,
he is.
Of those races, what any of those jump out to you?
Whew, Lord. I think in the fourth, it's been really interesting to sort of see who constituents have sort of gravitated towards, and they're very clear favorites, right? And folks who have deep pockets and huge contributions and endorsements and backing and stuff. And so Prentice Butler, he's been in the fourth ward office for the better part of for over a decade now. He's worked under two different alder people. He knows the lay of the land. He knows how to move around. He knows how to navigate it. He knows how to effectively, get his points across. He's very polished, and this is what he does. So it seems that he might win it, but you also have Lamont Robinson, who's a state rep currently, and had won re-election before deciding to run for alderperson. But he also has machine backing, big money. He is one of the very few queer politicians we have in the state. And, he also has a pretty decent record, right? So it's going to probably be between those two. And I think, whoever it winds up being, I just hope that they actually, follow through on their promises that they're telling folks, about, like, in terms of being more transparent, or bringing about more transparency, and including folks, including more community members in, decisions about, certain events coming to their ward, or schools coming to their ward. Like, that's been the biggest thing for a lot of residents. They feel like they're being left out of these decisions that impact their quality of life. Yeah. So whoever comes into the fourth ward, like we were talking about, like affordability, like, not much is being talked, not much is being discussed regarding that. I think there's some candidates in the fourth that have strong platforms regarding affordable housing, and others who haven't really dived in, or, have done like the work to sort of, articulate that, or where they stand on that. So that's going to matter. Of course,
a lot of development around here. A lot of development.
A lot of it, like so much. And I think, again, I think I did a piece for Block Club. What was it, last year, year before, about, affordable housing in Bronzeville and how that's, disappearing. Like, there are places, I grew up in Bronzeville, so like I'm looking at houses in my old neighborhood go for like $600,000, $1 million, 1.2. I'm like, I can't afford to move back to I can't move back to the hood now. Like, I can't, we're all sort of getting that sticker shock. So whoever comes into the fourth ward is going to have to really address that, because it's a very apparent need, right? I think the fifth ward is also something to keep an eye on, because, like I said, Leslie Hairston is leaving after serving over 20 years in her post, and it's literally anybody's game at this point. I don't see like a clear front runner there, so it's going to be really interesting come February 28th to see who people come. I will say that, well, let me take that back. I think Martina Hoyne, who worked under Lightfoot, and she recently left her post to run for alderperson, she might have some name recognition and some backing, so that might play a part. But again, I don't know how much of a part it will play.
Jamie, how much influence do you think Lightfoot is going to have on some of these ward races? Like, is she kind of trying to set up some things so that when she gets back, if she gets back in office, that she'll have a good, constituency in the council?
I think that's the idea with some of these wards. I think with, so there's been like this crazy high turnover in regards to, folks leaving the administration for other posts, right? And that's also been the case with some of the local races, and that, they've there are several candidates who have left to run for alderperson, and I'm hoping, I would think, if you're being strategic about it, that you are trying to, quietly support these candidates in the hopes of, hopefully, shoring up support for City Hall. Because again, like we've seen the last 4 years, particularly with City Hall, like she's losing allies left and right. It would make sense to sort of, try to build, a coalition of folks who are willing to work with you once they get elected. At least I would think so. Like, I'm not sure if that's actually happening. Sure. But yeah, no, like I think, if she does win re-election, she's dealing with a completely like different city hall than what a completely different city council than what she's used to. Like, it's been really crazy to see how progressive the council has gotten over the last decade. Like, we're having conversations that we weren't having about, like education, about reparations, like, it's crazy. Like, that just tells you how far we've come. And so you've got like a number of, Democratic socialists on the council. You've got, folks like, Alderwoman Taylor, who I think got into it with her about the migrant situation not too long ago. And that's another thing, like, like that's also working against her, because again, you cannot run on transparency and then leave the alderperson out of the decision to house migrants in her ward. And then you sort of kind of like, according to Alderwoman Taylor, she's being unfairly sort of maligned and characterized as this, like NIMBY, racist. Like, no, that's not the case. But, I think people have very valid questions. Like, how are these folks being vetted? Why are we putting them in this neighborhood where there are no resources? But people already fighting for resources, right?
Yep.
And then you'd find out that like there were organizations in Little Village and in Pilsen who wanted to take the migrants in and could not get in contact with Lightfoot about that. Their calls were ignored. And again, seeing all of this, like what are you doing? Like, how is this? Yeah.
And that's why I've been saying, like, I think a lot of people, her allies, former allies, they're seeing it right on the wall. So it would be shocking to me if she was to win, and then you get that kind of city hall. That's basically like the federal. That's like Washington D.C. I mean, it's like completely opposite, gridlock for real. So what are you really going to do? What's really going to happen if she gets back into office? But real quick, Jamie, I want to ask you something. You said you covered in Bronzeville.
Yeah.
What's going on with the Michael Reese land?
So, it is currently being redeveloped into what they're calling Bronzeville Lakefront, which is going to be this huge mega development, and it's going to be constructed over the better part of 20-30 years. It's going to have like a research center. It's going to have housing, retail, all of that. So I don't know if you guys have been, like, if you think about the 78 and then One Central, this is going to be another one of those huge mega developments that promises to sort of contribute to the economic viability of the city, yada yada, whatever that means. But yeah, so like it's I know some people had some concerns about what the consequences of Bronzeville Lakefront would be, considering, again, affordability and people already feeling pushed out. So it's a very much wait and see sort of thing. Because again, like, you hear all these promises about making sure that, the folks that live here are able to stay here, but then something always happens and eventually we see them disappear, right? So hopefully whatever, whoever gets into city council in the next couple weeks, they are mindful of that and, do their best to keep the promises regarding, making sure that residents are able to actually enjoy this huge mega development that's coming. But yeah, so like it's going to be, I think, a train station. I think they've also explored. Yeah, so like it's going to be a whole like mini, like a whole lot.
I live in Prairie Shores. I used to live in Prairie Shores when I was a little boy, and back you had Michael Reese, and you also had like little stores and stuff back there, like a little shopping area. Yeah. So I mean, it would be great to have all that, but damn, I know how the trains running back there too.
Yeah, so like I mean, like it's going to, like, there's going to be a I think a metro station or a metro hub there too. Like again, like this would be a whole community, like a whole ass community.
They probably stop there like once or twice a day, maybe. But
yeah. But yeah, like that's
when it comes, but make sure you there on the right time. But anyway, well, we gonna begin to wrap up. I'm so happy to be able to build with you guys as always.
Damn, this was fun.
And Jamie, of course, we mentioned at the top, you part of the Block Club Chicago crew. Definitely, if you are serious, conscientious Chicago citizen, you should be reading Block Club Chicago as much as you can. Try to subscribe.
Absolutely.
Try to subscribe and support that organization, if for no other reason than our girl here. But everybody there is doing good work across the city. I want to cite Mick Dumke's article on the money in the mayor's races. Really that I cited a couple times tonight. And if you want to know why Lightfoot and Chewy and Vallis are heading, the polls as of now, it's the money. It's all about the money. We know as as being into journalism veterans and veterans of looking into politics, is if you follow the money, you find out a lot of the story, and that's it speaks. The money that those three have rose, as well as Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson, according
to about to say, Brandon got some money.
Reporting, he's raised just a little bit more than Chewy. So he, as I want to finish up, we're looking like we're destined for a runoff, given the numbers, and
I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm sorry.
I do more work past the 28th, unfortunately, but
it's okay.
There we go.
That's what God need.
We all need it sometime. But are we looking? Who are we looking at exactly in this runoff? What do y'all expecting to see? Is it going to be the big three, or is Johnson going to invade?
We can only be two, right? It's only runoff is only two people, right?
At most.
Can only be.
Hold on, it was only two.
I should know this.
Y'all should know this.
I mean, I'm just going based off what happened last time with Lori and
right and Preckwinkle, yeah.
But see, and the thing was, then it was obvious it was coming down to those two. It's a little less obvious. So,
right.
Who do you think it will come down to?
Unfortunately,
you go first, Jamie. You go first. I want to hear yours.
Unfortunately, as much as I'm loath to admit it, I think it's going to be Lightfoot maybe and Vallis. I think we need to really be watching carefully, because again, Vallis was, I don't even, 4 years ago, because I think, didn't he run 4 years ago? Did I imagine that? Because
I think he ran the term.
I think
before that.
With Ron, he ran against Ron. So last year was, last election was Gary McCarthy. I'm sorry. What is time anymore? But yeah, no, I think the fact that, again, he has been able to pick up, a significant amount of support and endorsements from again, it is unheard. It's wild to me that usually, again, newspapers will endorse the incumbent. The fact that the Trib has endorsed Vallis is telling you something. And he speaks to a certain demographic who feels that Lightfoot's not doing enough on crime and law and order and public safety. And, it's just, he's a threat. Just like Brandon Johnson was a threat, I think Lori's also aware that Vallis is a threat, and I think they're going to probably be the last two standing. I thought, if you'd asked me about it a month ago, I probably would have said Lightfoot and Garcia, but I think it's going to be Lightfoot and Vallis.
Oh, wow. Okay, all right. I'm going to go with Chewy and Lightfoot. The reason why I'm saying that is because I think a few stories are starting to bubble up. I usually go to my grandmother. She's like my weather vane when it comes to Chicago politics. So she even brought it up to me about the story with Gus Vallis, about the shooting that happened down there in Texas.
Yeah.
I think that's starting to kind of bubble up within the Black community, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, the first thing she said, he don't even live here. How he gonna run here?
So yeah, there's also the residency drama.
It's a residency thing.
Did you guys hear his explanation for that?
No. What did you say?
Look. So shameless plug. Blog Club has been doing these one-on-one interviews with the candidates. And we have a whole section called The Ballot dedicated to the municipal elections that you should check out. Anyway, when he talked to Laura Washington recently, his explanation was that he barely spends any time in the house in the suburbs, that he spends most of his time in the rental in the city in Bridgeport. And even though like the story is that, you know, he's tending, like his wife is tending to their aging parents, which, you know, again, like side-eyeing, that like, you know, he made a point to just say that he spends, you know, like almost 100% of his time in the Bridgeport rental. Like he doesn't even, like he said, I think he said something along the lines of, you know, he used to go for the occasional coffee with his wife out there, but now he doesn't do that. Like, yo, like, I'm just like, I remember seeing that, I'm like, really?
Wow.
This is your explanation.
You know the balls you gotta have to say a story like that? I just go there for my coffee.
Right, I just have, but I don't even do that anymore. Like, I'm like, what the fuck?
I just have tea now in Bridgeport.
Like, what am I saying right now? And I don't know if he realizes that doesn't make him look good, considering, like, if you're, so what you're telling us is that not only do you not interact with your wife at all, but you have left her to solely handle the caregiving duties of your parents.
Wow.
That makes sense to you. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And
like,
I used to get coffee, but I don't even go out there and do that.
I don't even do that anymore. Like, we don't,
Yeah.
like, do you hate your wife?
Wow. That's that. I did not know that, but my grandmother, like I said, she was like, he don't even live here. So,
Yep.
So I'm thinking Chewy, because Chewy had a very good run against Raw. I believe they went into a runoff last time. So I think Chewy I think he did. Well, he gave Rom a good fight. I would say that. He gave Rom a good fight. So I think he has that name recognition right there. Also, I'm going back to Paul. I don't think he's going to pick up enough of the black folk, because Chicago is almost kind of a third. Almost black, white, and Latino, right? So I don't think he's going to get a good portion of the black vote. I don't know if he's going to get a good portion of the Latino vote. I see Chewy being able to get like a good homogenous mix. Name recognition, almost beat Rom. Ties back to Harold Washington for those of us, you know, was alive and then, and you know, say even older. So he has that. Yeah. Lori, though, I think he's still going to get that push from the simple fact of she's a person I know. I roll with him. I'm not voting for Paul as, you know, we'll see about Chewy. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think it's going to be a nice mixture for Chewy, but not enough for Paul, but maybe just enough for Lori. So I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
I can honestly see that. I think my thing with Chewy is that, like, like, I think some of from what I heard, like some of his performance from the at the debates have been not as strong.
No, they haven't.
And I think, you know, like hearing that and sort of factoring that in,
that's why I give Lori a shot.
Yeah, but I mean, but he does also have strong backing and strong endorsements.
He does.
That's the other thing, and he's also got like a pretty decent war chest. So it's. I
mean, also too, it's not beat around the bush too. He could be the first Hispanic Latino mayor. Yeah, in Chicago. Listen, I'm sure a lot of our Latino brothers and sisters, Hispanic brothers and sisters, going to be like, yo, I like his politics, and he's, you know, he could be the first. Of course, I'm going to vote for him. That's why I think he's going to get a nice little mixture of kind of everybody, but of course, a bigger percentage of them, which is, hey, go for history. I'm with you. We seen it with Barack.
Again, like, I don't think he's any worse than any of the other candidates that we have. So I think, you know, and you know, I've like, and throughout, like, even as a congressperson and covering stories in Inglewood and other parts of the city, like, he's out here, like, he's engaged. He's, you know, working on initiatives to, like, I think the big thing in Inglewood is getting that Racine Green Line station open. Major drivers behind that. Like, he's been out here, like, trying to, you know, actually do the community engagement thing. So that kind of works in his favor.
Inglewood has a very big Hispanic population now. You know, my old block is basically half and half. But once before it was basically all black. It's grown up in the 80s and the 90s. Now it's half and half. Raymond Lopez is the
15th
over there. The 15th over there. Yeah, my grandmother loves him. Mr. Lopez, hey, he had to come out and shovel it. Yes, Mrs. Spruiel. Whatever you need, Mrs. Spruiel. Yes, Mrs. Spruiel. You know, so and also the real. Yeah.
No, I mean, real quick though, because remember he was also running for mayor for a second.
He was going to be a major disruptor. I think that he bailed out. I don't know why.
I'm not a fan though, because
no,
I mean,
not either, really.
He's like the other side of the Lori Lightfoot coin. Like he's also queer. But he's also a big supporter of the cops, law and order, public safety. He speaks the right, like he's a regular guest on Tucker Carlson show for some reason. And I'm like,
he is a troll to Lori on Twitter. Oh, boy, a troll.
And like,
wow,
shameless troll.
I need to get my grandma on Twitter so she can see what's going on. Like, you see what your alderman out here talking about, grandma?
Talking cash money mess about
man.
I mean, but because like policy wise, they're like the two sides of the same damn coin.
Same thing.
How you gonna be mad at her when you just okay? But you okay? You know what? It's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. We gonna wrap it up on that with Saul, our producer, did confirm it's only 2 in the runoff. So we'll
it's 2 runoffs, right?
Okay.
We'll see who those top 2 are. Like I said, it's pretty much almost a done deal that's going to be the case because we can't come to consensus here in the city. It's so many options, like I said, good or bad, But that's what Chicago's going through right now, and we are 3 Chicagoans just giving you a little bit of our 2 cents on what's going on. Jamie, we got to definitely bring you back sooner to talk about what's going on in Bronzeville and Chicago proper.
Yeah, no. I'm down anytime, and just feed me weed. Just
we'll take a couple edibles. One time we're gonna take a couple edibles before we go on to it. Just let it go.
Yes. Say less. Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, right quick. What do you think about this black-owned spot that opened up now? Is that pretending?
So
it's out west.
Logan
it's in
Square.
Logan Square.
Is that pretending some good things
so
with the marijuana?
So I think we're finally getting some sort of progress in terms of equity with regards to like minority ownership or black ownership, and that's good to see. I did interview Matthew Brewer, the owner of that dispensary. He's opening another one in South Loop, or he's trying to open.
I was wondering when they say they were going to try to open a second one. I was wondering where, but that makes sense.
Yeah, well, So I attended one of the public meetings regarding that in November, and he, pitched his proposal to some of the residents there, and it did not go
over well
at all. No,
I wouldn't think so.
Like a lot of this, it's really interesting to see again how residents respond to certain people, who are trying to bring certain businesses to the area. And I think there's a really weird racial dynamic here at play, and that you are coming to an area of the South Loop that skews older and white. And there's very much this reefer madness idea. Some of the comments I heard during that meeting were, well, what if, like they're worried about people, like smoking in front of the dispensary. They're worried about homeless people robbing folks coming out of the dispensary. Like it was very much this, like
they don't know their grandkids gonna be coming up out of there.
I don't think, like Brad from Streeterville is going to come to this dispensary, buy, $300 in, weed products and then light up right outside the joint. Like that's not going to happen. This is what they're thinking. And like, can I tell you? So like, briefly, I'm sorry, because I know you guys have gone over, but I gotta tell you this story because it just blew my mind. So so me and Matthew are talking. We discovered we went to the same grade school. We went to Beasley, like 5 years apart, whatever. So we're whatever, and we're also the last 2 Black people in this room. One of the women I interviewed prior to going up to him to ask him questions, she's a retired nurse who lives in the area. She's like, I think he's a brilliant young man. He's very articulate. But I just don't think this is the proper fit for what he's trying to do. We should turn it into a community clinic to address, the more, the houseless residents in the area. Like, I mean, a noble idea, fine, whatever.
Okay.
But at some point during the interview, she decides to tell me how she isn't afraid of going, how, like, when she was working as a nurse, she wasn't afraid to go into Inglewood to serve, strong Black grandmothers like mine. And I'm like, my grandmother never lived in Inglewood, but thank you. All right. I don't know where we're going with this, but sure. So I let that slide, try to maintain.
Why y'all get on my neighborhood? Why y'all get
like, I'm like,
it's
I
the
don't know.
code, man. It's the code. Black people in Inglewood.
I'm like,
Jesus.
You know that Black people in Inglewood too, right? Okay, but anyway, so yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, maintain the poker face. We power through. And I walk over to Matthew. We start talking. This lady, this little old lady, has to be 80 if on a good day. She comes over to us, and she interrupts me mid-interview, knowing that I'm interviewing this brother, and she goes, like, I just wanted to tell you that I admire what you're trying to do. I just don't think, again, it's a proper fit, and woo. She then compliments my dimples, and then she asks if we were related.
Mm.
And we had looked at each other for a second, like, why would she? You know what? It's like you just have to. But this is the type of, like, microaggression bullshit you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Again, like, with all these dispensaries popping up in the city, and I think I think some of them have faced the same challenges and the same concerns or whatever. But I think the fact that it's a Black-owned dispensary really kind of ruffles a lot of feathers. And I'm glad that he successfully pulled it off in Logan Square. I'm not sure if South Loop is going to happen, because people have been really, really adamant about not allowing it to happen. They've circulated petitions. They're knocking on.
Wow.
Yeah, it's in print. It's in Sophia King's ward. So they've been, trying to get at her too. Like, no, we don't want this. We're knocking on doors. We're ringing the alarm, because we think that, again, people are going. This is going to, sort of be like a turn into some sort of den of iniquity.
It'll be like
again,
the Last of Us in a couple months.
Like, we really do think that people are going to spend gobs of money to smoke outside of the dispensary.
But they don't get, like, that's going to bring money into the community, because a lot of people like to smoke weed.
A lot of them do, but I mean, they don't care about that. They want something more family friendly, and I'm like, what do you need? But again, you moved to the South Loop, and you knew what it was when you got here.
Do they have? Did he have, like, a location exactly where you want to put in the South Loop?
Yeah. So I don't. If you're, where the Trader Joe's is on Michigan. It's going to be right next to it. Like where the pot.
See, that's thinking that, because you get high, get you a sandwich right after this.
So, like, no, I mean, so they're moving into the pot. No, but check it. They're moving into the pot space. The pot belly's gone, but
it's gone.
Okay. TJ's is right there.
Across the street
so,
and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So you can get your stuff, get your weed, get your products, go to Trader Joe's, get your snacks, go to Five Guys, get your burger. Like, it's genius.
Yeah.
But
it's a perfect spot.
But yeah, no, like, their concerns are very much like crazy reefer madness of the 50s, where they're afraid that their granddaughters are going to, get high off of the, jazz lettuce and, have sex. Like, it's crazy, but yeah, that's what he's facing. So we'll see.
It's just, like I say, it stays shady here in Chicago. We're going to wrap it up on that level. Jamie, let everybody know where to follow you if they don't already. And follow you, follow Block Club.
So you can read my work. Yeah. So you can read my stuff in Block Club Chicago, blockclubchicago.org. You can follow me on Twitter, where talk a lot of shit. Instagram, same name. Please don't follow me on Facebook. My family's there, and no, it's a horrible thing. Every other place though, fine. Yeah. So yeah. Also, Block Club Shy on Twitter. Block Club Shy.
D, of course, I bring him out of retirement every now and then for stuff like this. But
I like doing stuff like this. Listen, Jamie, I was thinking about actually doing like a Chicago political podcast. And
Dude,
then like
would be
I was
so
thinking about doing it. I was thinking about it, but then I was like, can my mental take it? Like, am I going to be still right up here after I do these podcasts?
Well, we would
then talking to you was kind of
we
like,
would think,
oh.
because this might be a good time to do it after the elections, is go around and try to interview as many of all the persons as we can. So
no, like, I mean, I'm down to help, seriously. I think
I appreciate it.
More of us doing this type of stuff is important. Like, because there's, I think, you know, like particularly with podcasting, there's so many white folks are already doing this, and like they sort of monopolize the conversation. So it'd be really great to get, you know, like a younger, blacker point of view.
We'll see what we can do. We're gonna try to get it.
I keep thinking about it.
All right,
so thank you, Jamie. Thank you for joining us, D, of course.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun, and I'm gonna be super. So,
and as far as y'all listening and watching, and go, if you haven't already, go out and vote, man. Whether if you listen, wherever you listening, man, go play a part in what's going on in your hood, in your city, and definitely if you're in Chicago, try to make your voice heard on or before February 28th, and likely after with the runoff. So. Keep doing your thing. Stay safe out there. Stay sharp, y'all. And we'll holler at y'all down the road. All right.